Well, welcome back DIY car guys and car girls, and today I think we got my spark issue figured out. I'll show you what I found, some of the plugs that I run, and also I want this channel to be a source for you guys to learn to think for yourselves. I encourage everyone to be a free thinker. Don't just drink the Kool-Aid from Mr. Jim Jones because he says he's the best and he knows it all. What I want you to listen to is your motor and learn to do things for yourself and make up your own mind. That's how I feel. If you don't like it, then just go drink the Kool-Aid from Mr. Jim Jones. So that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so these are all the plugs that I've tried in this setup with E85 so far. Now, it's very important that you just don't say, well, you run this plug, it worked good in your motor, so I'm running this plug. It doesn't mean that this one plug is going to be great for all applications, and that's the one you should use because that's what works best in my combination that I currently have. I don't want you guys to ever take that advice because it's wrong. I've seen too many times where every motor is a little different and you don't know until you try. So if you don't try, you don't know. That's the main thing. But I will go over some of these plugs. This is before I upgraded to the crank trigger and before I redid my wires and the grounds and all that. So I want you to look first. I want you to look at this because this is interesting. So this right here, I'll flash up a really close picture so you can see it of how my plugs have looked for the longest time. And they have always looked like that even on gas and E85 for the longest time with this, no matter kind of where I put the timing. Now if I took the timing all the way back to like 28, it wouldn't really happen. But the thing was a complete dud with 28 degrees of timing. I mean, you could tell the motor is just way underpowered. So when you look at the plugs, you think it looks like a little bit of detonation, but when you put them under the magnifying glass, you didn't really see any metal in there. It just looked like carbon was splattering off. You know, I put the borescope down the motor and I saw, you know, you can see where carbon's kind of slinging off the pistons. I was thinking, well, maybe it's just the way this motor is. It just slings carbon on the plugs and that's how it looks. So I kind of just dealt with it. And then I would go tune it to the track, or, you know, recently took it to the dyno, only E85. I'd take it to the track, I'd give it timing and feel, and where it ran the fastest, that's kind of where I put it, right? So, like you knew in my last video, this guy developed a miss that we were able to cure. Now I changed the plugs, I changed the wires, and I put a crank trigger down there, and I added some more grounds and rewired the MSD box. But the really cool thing that I found in this whole issue that stopped was this. Let me pull one of these plugs out. So this guy right here is number 2. But if you notice, and these are all resistor plugs, the one that you're told to run for all applications is this one right here, which is a non-resistor plug, and it's a number 7. I do think that this is going to be the perfect plug whenever I start running nitrous in E85 because it's a non-projected tip. I mean, this one may have a little more spark energy because it's a non-resistor, so you get more spark energy. I've still not sold that it really helps a whole bunch because I haven't seen really a difference. But I do notice this one does seem to run a little better putting around town because it's one heat range up from this one. This is this guy right here is a 6 on the NGK, no sorry, 6 on the NGK scale. There's a debate that, you know, this one still runs, you know, cooler because it's a resistor. You know, I don't know. But one thing about this, you notice that it is a projected tip, which I do like running projected tips on the street because it sits more in the flame front on a small block Chevy. This guy on an angle plug, this points next to the exhaust to get a fuller burn. Now with nitrous, you don't want that because you can melt the tips off. But for right now, I'm not running nitrous, and on the street, I do like these cheap plugs, and they seem to work pretty good. I ran on gas, I ran a best time with these 3923s. So we'll try both of them when we're at the track, and we'll see which one actually runs, oops, crap, a little better. So if you guys are wondering why these tips look a little bit rounded, it's because I round them off. When you gap them small like this, it's like a 30 thousandths of a gap. When you gap them, then it has a lot of overhang of the grounding strap over the tip right there. So I put them on the belt sander and I kind of until they're flush with the tip. So that's why they look rounded. Does it help? I have no idea. Does it make me feel better? Yes, it does. So that's why they're that way. Okay, so before I take this out, I want to go over what a resistor and a non-resistor is and why they use a resistor plug. But first, let's talk about the LT1. And you know, everyone is running an NA LT1, and what's the plug they always say to run? Everyone says to run a TR55, right? Something like that. But what I found with this setup, and this is a modified motor, it's different. Just like this is a modified motor, it's different from whatever motors they're going to have, different pistons, combustion chambers are smaller, blah, 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 blah. For the longest time, I ran a TR5 in this, TR55, and then when I went to nitrous, I ran this guy right here, which is a BR7EF, which is a non-projected tip, a little bit colder. But when I ran that plug in the LT1, I noticed that it ran a little faster and a little more consistent than the hotter plug did in A. So that's one of those things, and that's why I say, like, you can't just like say this is it because it works in this motor. You just got to try. And so you got to try and see what happens. That's the big thing about this. So let's also talk about what the resistor does in a plug. Well, it's interesting that MSD has this right here. Now this is for this crank trigger, but notice I talk about electromagnetic interference. So if you run that crank trigger and wire by your plugs and your ignition coil, it causes electromagnetic interference, which can throw off your timing to any digital timing electronics like that. Now, I'm sure MSD makes their stuff to work with non-resistor plugs, but on some applications like EFI, you can't run a non-resistor plug because it'll cause missing and everything else. Now, I don't think that was the problem with that plug where I was screwing up my ignition because I ran before, it was fine. This kind of slow developed to get worse. But that's the reason why it's either non-resistor or resistor dependent on your application. So I would say try both of them to see which one works best on your application there also. All right, so enough of that. Let's go out and see if we can't find any V6 Chargers or Mustangs to whoop up on. Maybe we can find a Hellcat and see how this thing compares on the street to a Hellcat. Doubt it, but we're just gonna go get some beer and come back, and whatever happens, happens. Whew. Okay, so we're back, guys, and I am not getting back in that thing today. I went out and got what I wanted. Only made one hit because I really wanted to get home right away because it is 96 and 44% humidity. This is very similar to conditions that I went to at the track that one day. And it's this, for me driving in a car without AC, it's just not, it's not for me. I mean, horrible conditions, but the main thing I wanted to see is that in these horrible, really hot conditions, will the plug still speckle? So let's go take a look. And the answer is no. It's actually looking pretty darn good. Now, is this 3923, you can get this plug off of Rock Auto for $1.11 better than this guy right here? I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say there are two different, purposes. This one I want to use just driving around, so I don't like, sit up, or I'd rather just, tear up these guys, go to the track, and then put something like this in. So we're going to find out later on when it cools off, of course. I'm not going to track in this heat. If this plug and this plug, how similar they run in the 1/8 or in the 1/4 or whatever. So we got some more testing to do, and some people call me a professional test and tuner, but you know what? That's okay. You can call me a professional test and tuner, whatever, but there's one thing I want you guys to know right away. A lot of people who are selling you things, they're trying to sell you something. Either they've got sponsorship from them, it's in their best interest, or it makes them money. You know, I make hardly any money off my YouTube videos. And the only thing I share with you guys is my experiences to try to help you guys out with your project. A lot of people call me dumb, whatever. I don't care. I try to show you guys what I have, what works for me, and try to, you know, tell people, like, just don't have a closed mind. It has to be a certain way. Always try different things, test. So like I said, people call me a professional test and tuner, that's fine. I like to share my experiences to help you guys, because I'm like I said, I'm not selling anything. And remember, always going to be someone faster than you out there at the track or whatever. It's just important that you have fun. For me, I'm not trying to be the fastest. I'm just trying to have fun, go out on the street and just maybe whoop up on a couple of stock cars and hopefully go to an event and not get my ass handed to me first round like I recently did. So anyways, guys, with that said, keep on wrenching. Peace.